Now we're streaming. Hi, everybody. Welcome. It's the pre-show of today's 221,002 A+ study group. So if you are watching this on the replay, you can fast forward about 10 minutes and we're going to get started. If you are here live, then you're stuck with me. Sorry, we are live and we are streaming. We've got all 221,002 A+ questions for you today. And we have live phone calls. I should probably get this started. Do I have the call-in studio? Okay, got the call-in lines all set to go. Let's get the presentation up on the screen. There we go. That looks good. I think we're about ready. We've got audio, which seems to be working. We've got video, which seems to be working, perhaps more importantly. We've got everything here. I think we're okay. I think we're in pretty good shape. Hi, everybody. Hi, chat room. Hi, Croatia. Elekehan. DC. Welcome. There is probably, I should probably get audio ready there. I think that's just fine. We've got lots of questions for you today. I feel like we just did this, didn't we? We did it on Tuesday. We did the 1001 on Tuesday. This is Thursday, so 2 days later, and we're doing it again, except it's different questions. So if you were here on Tuesday, completely different thing, except for the fact that it's identical. Other than that, it's what you would expect. All right. I should probably turn off all of these crazy noises. There we go. Makes all the difference when you do that. Hello, chat room. Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. I've got, hello, Sa. I'm guessing South Africa. Welcome. There is, how many minutes left till we get started here? I don't have my countdown clock. So we got 7.5 minutes until we get started. Make sure you check, pop open a new browser window. You can go to the Q&A right now, which is what's in front of me. That's the Q&A at professormesser.com/QA. Why don't I give a 30-minute notification ahead anymore? Because I never have. That's why. There is a 5-minute notification. So there's a 5-minute notification that goes out. I guess that's how I've always done it, is 5 minutes. At 30 minutes, I don't know what happened. 30 minutes is a long time. If I told somebody, be here in 30 minutes, you would forget about it if it was 30 minutes long. So I've always had 5 minutes. I guess because that's how I like to work, is that I get a notification, oh, we're starting in 5 minutes, and then we're off to the races, which means that notification has not even gone out yet, but it will be shortly. So you can look at Twitter, you can look at Facebook, you can look at emails. They're all going to arrive. I don't know if YouTube used to do it or not. I don't know what YouTube does. That's their own party. I have no control over what YouTube does or how they announce things or any of that stuff. So unfortunately, I know they've made changes to that recently. There was a notice on YouTube on my dashboard. Let's see, on my dashboard where someone with YouTube was telling me, let's see if I can find it. Here's news. That's not. What's new with bell notifications? So that's probably the bell notification. No, bell notification would be when I go live. It would not be 30 minutes prior to a scheduled event. So I don't know. Don't know what to tell you. Have no idea. I'll do a little bit of research. I'll have Lori, who's listening to this, remind me to write this down and send me a note to say, find out why YouTube doesn't send a 30-minute notification anymore. And I'm sure something on the Google will tell me what's up. What's up, LB? Thank you for being in the chat room. Thanks for being here. A little hectic today. A lot of stuff going on today. There's a lot of things on my schedule and a lot of things that unplanned that have cropped up. So I never know what's going on. Welcome, Chicago. That's the real key, is scheduling everything perfectly and then watching the chaos just fall apart. Just everything goes crazy. And I guess I didn't turn that off. And there's my notification that indeed we have a study group. Now, while I'm telling myself 5 minutes ahead, I don't know if that's really useful. That's probably not going to help anybody. by doing that. Konnichiwa. Welcome. I have, though, the emails, the Google, the Facebook that goes out for notification, and then whatever YouTube does. And I usually start up YouTube 10 minutes before, so I'm guessing everybody gets YouTube notifications when I start the pre-show. So that's what it is. Puerto Rico, welcome. Ohio, you having enough storms? Got more storms rolling in. There's our weather report. Ohio has thunderstorms rolling in this afternoon. Oh, from Abydos. There you go. Welcome. I forget how they greeted each other in Abydos. Need to figure that out. Guyana, welcome. What else? I need to make sure I've got recordings going. I can see the little Cylons going down here. That's good. Recording is also going on the streaming server, which is what you see over here. That's the streaming server display, which is really in the other room, but I have a video matrix switch that sends it over to this screen, among other things. I switch that screen out from time to time. Montreal was just in Canada last week. I'll be in Canada next week. Doing a lot of Canada these days. There's a lot of that going on. So we'll have to see how things go with that. There is all, for those of you just joined, we're doing the 221,002 questions today. So still all A+ all the time, except for a week from next when we do Network Plus and Security Plus. We got about 3 minutes until we get started. So everybody should have gotten the notifications. Yep, it sure went out. It's like I spelled everything right, maybe. Close enough. So it got there. We'll see how that works. Bronx checking in. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Thank everyone for being here. It's hard to do a study group by yourself. LA's here. I'm assuming that's not Lloyd Acres. I'm assuming that's the larger place. Los Angeles. Indeed. So not Lloyd Acres. I'm hoping to get some folks from Lloyd Acres soon. Nigeria, welcome. The challenge with getting people to tune in from Lloyd Acres is I think there might be 20 people that live there. That's the whole problem. Maybe it's bigger than 20. Maybe I'm misunderstood. Maybe it could be as many as 30. So there is that. Let's see how we're doing on time. We've got just under 2 minutes. We'll get things going. Don't forget about the live Q&A, prop open, a new browser window. Go to professormesser.com/QA. The message is up right now. You can have a look. Well, Fontana. Now we're getting the California contingent. Now everybody's checking in. How's things on the 101? We've got Q&A in the first hour. We've got call-ins, and you can put questions in the chat room in the second hour. I mean, you can put questions in the chat room anytime you'd like, but I'll be taking questions from there in the chat room. PA is here. Welcome. There's Grandma. Hi, Grandma. Miss you, Grandma. Where you been? You don't call anymore. I think I know why. Colorado. I'm guessing CO. I'm not good with abbreviations. Actually, I'm not bad with abbreviations, but I'm not good with abbreviations. I'm not sure what that means. I am right in the middle with abbreviations. Minute to go. 30 seconds. We'll get this thing going. Oh, and it wasn't going to be there for a bit, and then we pulled it together, and here we are. I had to get back up on the ladder and turn the lights on. I got a new APU, not APU, but a power distribution unit that has got its Ethernet connection working, I hope, that has arrived. We got to put it back up on the ceiling so that will work. So we'll have to see how that works with all of that. Well, that means top of the hour that we can actually get some things started here. So I think that is exactly what we should do. Here we go, everybody. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the June 2019 Professor Messer A+ Study Group. coming to you live from our world headquarters here at Messer Studios. My name is James Messer. I will be your host for this next hour of A+ Q&A, all from the 220-1002 A+ exam. This would be the latest A+ exam. We'll talk all about what the latest is and what that means for you in just a moment. But we've got plenty of things to talk about and go through as we step through everything we're going to do on the study group. We're able to do these study groups thanks to your ongoing support. Thanks for watching all of my videos. As some of you are probably aware, every single training course that I create is all made absolutely free and available on YouTube. There's nothing behind a paywall. You don't have to give me any registration nonsense. You just go out to YouTube and you can watch it. So everything's there. The goal is to keep all of those going. We've got a subscription to YouTube that you can subscribe there, click the bell so you can be notified when those new videos are there. And of course, we have daily pop quiz questions on the Twitter. If you're watching this for continuing education unit credit, then listen in during this first hour, and I will give you a super secret code word and some instructions on how you can get a webinar-based CEU to be able to do that. So hopefully that will be something you will listen in on. I'm more than happy to do that, and I'm caught up. So if you've sent me a CEU, I think there's 2 of them in the queue. Normally there's over 100, so I'm feeling pretty good about myself right now. That will change probably in less than an hour, of course. We're going to talk today about the A+ exams until July 31st. We are here on June the 13th. So on July 31st, in a month and a half, the 900 series exams go away. They disappear completely. They are vapor. They're history. They are Memorex. They are gone. So anything that you've been working on the 900 series, you have to finish it up by July 31st if you're taking the English language version of this. I think the foreign language versions retire in October 31st. So this is pretty important. It's important that if you've been working on 900 series, and you need to get it done. Now, if you're looking at that date and thinking, oh, that's not going to work. There's no way I'm going to finish 900 series, both exams, and get everything done by July 31st. Well, thankfully, there's a brand new set of exams that you should be studying for. It's the 1001 and the 1002. These were released in January, so these are relatively new. You should be studying these. If you're absolutely sure you're going to finish the 900 series by July 31st, then continue with 900. For the vast majority of us, I think most of us at this point are studying the 1000 series exams. If I was starting right now, I would be studying the 1000 series exams. I would not be touching the 900 series exams. Fortunately, the requirements for these exams are exactly the same. So it's the same grading scale, it's the same number of questions, it's the same amount of time. Nothing changes with the experience. It's 90 minutes long. You could get 90 questions. You have to get a 675 on the 1001 and a 700 on the 1002 on a scale between 100 and 900. I don't get it either, but there it is. It's an odd scale. I get it. Fortunately, if you do have to shift gears and go between the 900 and the 1000, there is about 20% new content on the 1001 and the 1002. So it's not a massive change. You don't have to relearn everything. Pretty much 80% of what's on the 1001 you will have already learned on the 900 series. So very little you're going to have to worry about changing. You just have to make sure that you get that extra 20%, which means if you're studying for these exams, make sure you study from the right materials. If you're taking the 220-1001 and the 220-1002, make sure all of your study materials have been written specifically for the 220-1001 and the 220-1002. All the topics on the 2 exams relatively similar to the topics on the 900 series. Not much has changed there either. So this should be very familiar. If you're familiar at all with the 900 series, the 1000 series is just another minor change and an update to the materials that are there. We got rid of the old stuff, we put in some new stuff, and now we have a whole new set of exams to go through. We have live study groups like this one available that you can watch. This replay of the study group is available immediately afterwards. It takes a couple of minutes for YouTube to do what it does, but as soon as they finish gathering it together and making it available, it's available in a matter of minutes after we stop. So there's nothing I have to do. I don't have to upload anything. It's simply made available to you. Some of you have podcasts you listen to. you would like an audio version of these study groups, you can find those links to the podcast audio version at professormesser.com/podcast. There are links there for both A+ study groups, the Network Plus and the Security Plus study group that we do. If you're watching the video replay, one of the things I'll make note, very useful, is about a day from now, my marketing manager, Lori, will go through this entire replay, and she will have timestamps for everything that we have done in the study group. So if you're watching YouTube right now and it's a replay, click the link to expand out the video description, and you'll notice there's a huge list there that you can click on and go directly to whatever you'd like to go to. That might help you out if you're looking for a particular topic or you'd like to move ahead to the next question. Might help you with your studies just a little bit. If you were watching our Tuesday study group 2 days ago, you'll notice the timestamps are already there. So she's already done all the hard work for us and made it available to you. Today we're going to do Q&A. So get ready for some A+ Q&A. Here's how you can answer the questions. You need to go to pop open a new browser window, then go to this URL, which is professormesser.com/QA. There's also a link on the live page, which is at professormesser.com/live, which is where the chat is that I'm talking to everybody. If you're on YouTube live and you're wondering, why is there not a chat? What is this chat room he is talking to? It's the chat room that is here on my screen that I've been communicating to the folks in blue that are on my screen. You should go to that chat room. Well, that's the wrong button. You should go to that chat room, and you'll be able to communicate with me at professormesser.com/live. Pop up in a new browser window, go to professormesser.com/QA so that you can talk to me on the Q&A that I have right here. I'm going to show it to you. There it is. There's the Q&A screen. You should be able to get those and go through it. That Q&A is going to give you a question that says, a system administrator is copying a large data file to a remote location with a satellite network connection. This connection is a low bandwidth link and often loses connectivity due to weather. Which of the following tools would be the best choice for copying this data file? Now, if that question sounds familiar, that's because it's a question we did last month. This is our Q&A, our study group rewind question. And this is one to see if you're able to get into the Q&A system and answer all of these questions. The possible answers are robocopy, copy, sync, rcopy, xcopy. And you can see that we get real-time views of exactly what's going on the screen as that information is going through. So if you can get there and you can see these questions, you can lock in your answer. Just remember what your answer was, because once you lock it in, it disappears from the screen. So you kind of have to remember what you put in there to make sure that everything looks the way you would expect it to look. So another one of those just to keep in mind as you're going through this. In fact, in this case, you can see 66% of you have chosen robocopy. We have a three-way tie for second place between sync, rcopy, and xcopy, and then only 1% said copy. I have a feeling a number of you are very familiar with the copy command and how there's no way that that's going to be the right answer for this particular question. In fact, the right answer for this question, the 68% of you that said robocopy, well, that's what it is, all right. It's robocopy. It is robust copy. I always thought it was robot copy. That's how I thought it. No, I was wrong. It's not robot copy. And there's no robot, so I'm not sure why I thought that. It's robust copy. And the name itself implies what it does. It's a very nice copy command, a lot of different options, a lot of different things it can do. It's a very powerful copy command, and it is quite robust because if it does lose connection to that remote location, it can simply wait till the connection comes back up, and it can continue with its copy process, which is very nice if you have a link that's slow or is prone to disconnects, especially over a non-terrestrial link like a satellite connection. And that means if you answered A, robocopy, the 70% of you got that one absolutely right. It is one that does come in handy. So make sure that you're familiar with robocopy. It can solve a lot of problems for you if you're doing anything with robocopy. It's one that's already in Windows 7, Windows 8.1, Windows 10. So you probably have it available. If you've never used it, you didn't even know it was there. And there it is waiting for you. There's nothing extra you would have to do to make that happen. Let's do some Q&A, though. Let's get to some new questions. And I have some for you. By the way, some of you, this first question, by the way, is a performance-based question. Now, what is that? This is an important consideration when you're thinking about taking the exam. A lot of people think the exam is just multiple choice, A, B, C, and D. Not the case. You will get a handful of questions at the beginning of your certification exam that are not multiple choice. CompTIA calls these performance-based questions. These are questions that are anything but multiple choice. They might be fill in the blank. It might be putting you at a command prompt and asking you to perform a function. It might put you at a Windows desktop and ask you to perform a function. It might put things in a particular order and ask you to put them in ascending or descending order, or fastest to slowest. It may put a screen of information and have you drag and drop information. There's a lot of different ways to ask these questions. I was reading, somebody was under the impression, was reading on Reddit that someone was under the impression that the entire exam was performance-based questions. No, fortunately not. Just the first few questions, a handful, plus or minus. We have about 5 questions plus or minus a few, usually. Sometimes fewer than that, sometimes a little more. The question I have for you, the first question of the day that I have for you, is a performance-based question. So if you go back and watch all of our study groups, you'll find the very first question is always a performance-based question. So get ready for this one. I'm going to ask you this question, and it's really a fill in the blank on your side, but I'm going to give you the question on the screen, which asks, match the command to the description. Match the command to the description. I have 6 commands here and 6 descriptions. So if you think they are already in the right order, you can simply put into the blank that's on your screen 1A, 2B, 3C, 4D, 5E, 6F. It's not in that order. That's my hint to you. I did not put them in the actual order. Here are the commands and the descriptions for those of you listening on the podcast side. Let's first go through all the commands. We have PS, DISM, NET, SFC, DD, and LS. So one more time for those: PS, DISM, NET, SFC, DD, and LS. So here are the 6 descriptions. As we go through these descriptions, see if you can match these up. The first description is restore a Linux partition from backup. The second is map a drive letter to a network share. The third is view the applications currently running. The fourth, list all text files in a directory. The fifth, verify that malware has not modified any system files. And the last description, add a file to a Windows image. Those are your 6 descriptions. Restore a Linux partition from backup, map a drive letter to a network share, view the applications currently running, list all text files in a directory, verify that malware has not modified any system files, and add a file to a Windows image. Hopefully this is a set that you have seen before. Hopefully you're familiar with these commands and these descriptions. Notice, by the way, that I didn't ask you what the command meant or what the name of it was. A lot of people spend, I would think, I'm guessing a more time than they should on flashcards that tell you the name of a letter of these acronyms. And that actually doesn't help you very much on the exam. Knowing what PS stands for or knowing what SFC stands for doesn't necessarily help you on the exam. It might give you some idea what that thing does. CompTIA, though, is going to ask you questions like this one that are asking you, what does PS do? What is the importance of SFC? How can I use DD? So this is one that becomes useful to know. In the chat room, a question came up about these questions because you might get all of them right. You might get 4 of them right. You might get 2 of them right. You might get 1 of them right. You might not. There's a different number that you can get here. And some folks have asked if you get some type of partial credit on these performance-based questions. CompTIA is in their frequently asked questions file on their website have said, maybe. They've given us a definitive maybe that says we might give you multiple choice. We might not give you multiple choice. So the question in the chat room says, do we have to answer all of these correctly? I don't know. That's that. Hopefully, yes. And I would think on a question like this, there's the opportunity to give a multiple choice, a partial credit to this particular question, to these multiple answers. A partial credit would work for this one, but I don't know for sure, and CompTIA isn't saying. So that doesn't help at all. They used to say that we give partial credit rarely, and they specifically use that term rarely. And I noticed that they've changed that terminology on the frequently asked questions. It's now changed from rare to, yeah, maybe. Maybe that means they're getting better with giving away some of their points. I don't know. Let's see how you did and see if you got all of them right. Let's step through each one of these. Let's start with the first one, which is PS. That does not stand for postscript. That's a command. PS is the processes viewer and allows us to view the applications that are currently running on a Linux device. One of the things you have to know for this exam is both Linux and Windows commands. I think there's about 12 to 15 Linux commands you have to know. And you have to be able to use them at the command prompt. And that's certainly one you need to know. Now we have one that's not a Linux command. It's a Windows command, DISM. And DISM allows you to manage a Windows image. This is a service manager for Windows images. So if you need to add a file, remove a file, change any aspect or property of a Windows WIM, Windows image file, the WIM file, then that's the command that will allow you to do that. The DISM, it's a command line function in Windows. There is the net command. Some of you are probably familiar with the net command. The net command in Windows allows you to, again, do a lot of different things. But one that is in this list is that it maps a drive letter to a network share. Netuse maps the drive letter. So netuse is a useful one to know. Netuse is probably a good one to know for your exam. So if you're studying for the exam and wondering, what of all these net commands should I know? Netuse is probably a good one. Netview would be another good one to know. Those are some of the most popular net commands, and I have those in my video as well, so you'll know what to run into. The fourth on our list was SFC. SFC. That is our system file checker, which verifies that malware has not modified any of the Windows system files. That's a Windows command. So if you've been infected with malware and you're worried that maybe the system files themselves have been corrupted, you can run SFC, which will check the integrity of all of your system files. And if anything does not look quite right, if any of these files have been modified, it will overwrite that file with the corrected version, which is kind of nice. Kind of cleans things up for you and can really save you if you run into problems, not just with malware, but with anything that may have corrupted any of your system files. The next on our list is DD. That doesn't even seem like a real command, does it? DD, just the letters DD. Delta, delta together, really? It is. The DD command, extremely useful in Linux, commonly used to back up and restore entire partitions of information. DD, again, has a lot of flexibility, but whenever we talk about the primary use of DD, I would say that most people primarily use DD to perform backups of entire partitions. It's a great way to image a Linux partition and a great way to back up the data that's there. And since you're backing up with DD, it's also used to restore that data from the image that you created. So restoring a Linux partition from backup would be a perfect use of the DD command. And the last command we have here, ls, again, not a Windows command, probably a Linux command that you recognize, since that's a command that's very common. The ls command lists all of the files that are in a directory, and if you use some parameters, you can list just the text files if you want to. You can list all the files that end in a particular extension or start with a particular set of commands, and that is one that becomes important too. So those are our answers. PS allows you to view the applications currently running. DISM allows you to add a file to a Windows image. The net command can be used to map a drive letter to a network share. The SFC command verifies that malware has not modified any system files. The DD command restores a Linux partition from backup, among many things. And ls allows you to list all text files in a directory. So that becomes pretty useful to have those capabilities there. Some of you in the chat room are saying, what about Mac OS? We haven't talked about Mac OS. It's clearly in the exam objectives, and you will find that all of the Linux commands that are in the exam objectives are also applicable for the most part to Mac OS as well. It's one of the advantages, Mac OS being based on Unix. Linux, of course, being very similar to the Unix operating system in syntax anyway. I don't want to insult any Linux people by calling it Unix or vice versa. I look forward to your cards and letters. Hopefully you got some of those abbreviations, commands, and the different descriptions of the commands correctly. If you missed any one of those, this would be the way to do it. Everything that we're doing today is 220 1002. So you won't see these commands on the 1001 exam. This is all related to the 220 1002. So that might help you as you go through these individual pieces of knowing what we're going to talk about today. If you didn't understand any of these, you don't know what these are, get the CompTIA exam objectives. It writes out everything for you and tells you every command you need to know, and perhaps more importantly, limits you to the commands that you need to know, because you could spend forever memorizing commands, but they have the list right there in the exam objectives. Well, that covers our performance-based question for the month. Let's do a multiple choice question. Something maybe we can take a stab at and a guess and maybe get something right on our exam just by guessing. Hopefully that will work for us. Here is our first multiple choice question of the day. And it asks this question that says, a user on the manufacturing floor is installing a Windows application for a new CNC, that's a computer numeric control machine. However, the installation program fails during the driver installation. Which of these would be the most likely reason for this issue? Would it be that the CNC machine is not compatible with Windows? Is it that the user needs elevated permissions? Is it that the Windows computer is not connected to the same network as the CNC machine? Is it that the CNC firmware needs to be upgraded? Or is it that the Windows workstation is infected with malware? There are the 5 different options. Let's go through this one more time. A user on the manufacturing floor is installing a Windows application for a new CNC, computer numeric control machine. However, the installation program fails during the driver installation. Which of these would be the most likely reason for this issue? Hopefully this is one you've run into. If you think you know the answer, you want to answer this at professormesser.com/QA. Please no answers in the chat room or hints. Here's the possible answers. It might be that the CNC machine is not compatible with Windows. The user needs elevated permissions. The Windows computer is not connected to the same network as the CNC machine. The CNC firmware needs to be upgraded, or the Windows workstation is infected with malware. So lock in your answers. Go to professormesser.com/QA to lock in those answers. This is one that's a pretty common style of question on the exam, which is it doesn't ask you straight out, here's an error, what's the reason? It gives you a story. It gives you a scenario. It gives you a situation and gets you understanding what this is. This would be a perfectly reasonable situation. If you worked for a manufacturing company, you're probably having to deal with all kinds of crazy equipment. If you work for power generation and you do work for a power company, any type of utility company, there's all kinds of hardware and machinery that you're connecting with that's very unique to that particular vertical. So this is one that you would certainly run into if you were working on a manufacturing floor that needed a CNC machine. And you're maybe wondering, what CNC machines aren't in the exam objectives? They're not. But this is a completely normal scenario where the CNC machine has to have some link back to the world, and you are the link with your operating system. Hopefully it's one that you're familiar with when you're looking through what these things happen to be. This is one where if I start trying to figure it out, you may find that when you get into these situations, you have to start reading a little more. Let me read more about the CNC machine. Let me understand more about how it interacts with everything else. How does it interface to our network? What are the connections that you need? And you may end up trying to be the most familiar person with that particular hardware when this is all over with, which actually puts you in a pretty good position to make that happen. Let's see how we did with this one. Let's click the how'd we do and see if we got the answers here. We have 49% that said the user needs elevated permissions. 30% of you say that the CNC firmware needs to be upgraded. 16% of you said the CNC machine is not compatible with Windows. And then we have single digits. 3% said the Windows computer is not connected to the same network as the CNC machine. And 2% of you said the Windows workstation isn't affected with malware. Well, I try to get at least one answer on here that half of you will answer. Whether it's right or not, I'm not sure. But I want to get 50%. We got almost 50% of you that said the user needs elevated permissions, but about a third said that the CNC firmware needs to be upgraded. So if we had to choose between two of those would be two to choose from, although nearly 20% said the CNC machine not compatible with Windows. This is a scenario that you will run into regardless of whether you're dealing with a CNC machine or anything else in Windows. If you're installing a driver in Windows, that's a pretty big deal. Installing a hardware driver is something that you would need elevated permissions for. And Windows is not going to allow any user to simply install a driver. That's a huge security risk. You have to have administrator rights or the proper rights to be able to install a driver. So if you're running this installation program, you will want to run this install program as an administrator. The way that you do that is you run the program and then you can right mouse click on the Windows screen and you'll get an option right there to run as administrator. That's it right there. Now, even if you are an administrator and you are logged in, that is one where it becomes pretty darn useful for you to be able to know this, that just because you are in the administrator group doesn't mean that you will have this program run as an administrator by default. The program will not run as an administrator unless you specifically tell it to run as administrator. Just being in the administrator group is not enough. Windows still will not run it as administrator. It will simply run it with your normal user rights. So you can either click that right mouse click and run it as administrator, or you can type it in the command line and use Control-Shift-Enter. That's a quick way to go immediately to type in CMD, Control-Shift-Enter, and now you're at a command prompt in the elevated rights as administrator. This is pretty useful to have that there. Hopefully, that's something you've run into. If you've ever tried to install a driver in Windows, it always needs those elevated rights. And in this case, that is the right answer if you answered B. This is one where you have the user needs elevated permissions. So that's one that does come in handy. If you're running in this configuration, 49% of you chose the user needs elevated permissions. 29% said the CNC firmware needs to be upgraded. I don't even know what the CNC firmware is. We know that this device is running Windows. We know that it integrates with the CNC. It's a Windows machine. So the CNC firmware would not be the issue that the driver is not loading. That's certainly might solve a very niche problem or a specific issue relating to the operation of the CNC, but it wouldn't prevent our operating system from installing a driver. And 18% of you said the CNC machine is not compatible with Windows. Well, somewhere in here we have Windows because we ran a Windows application to run the installation, and the installation program failed once it got to the part where it installed a driver. So that's our problem. And whether the CNC machine is compatible or not with Windows, there's some part of this machine that is Windows. So the entire machine may not be a Windows machine, but the part that we talk with that then talks to the CNC machine certainly is Windows, or it may be that this CNC device is a Windows machine. Why wouldn't it be? That's certainly possible. So that's another thing we have to think about when we're dealing with these types of weird systems. In the chat room, people are saying, but isn't it an embedded system? That nothing in here said that it was embedded. In fact, if it was an embedded system, we would not be installing drivers. That's for sure. You wouldn't be installing anything. You would just turn it on, it would work. So that's one of those that does come in handy. In fact, this is the opposite of embedded for sure. Since we're doing an installation, there's an installation program. We're in Windows. We're installing drivers. Definitely something that is a standalone Windows installation to have that. So if those 49% of you, that 50% number we hit spot on, the user needs elevated permissions is the right answer. That's the only one. And you'll notice in here it says, which of these would be the most likely reason for this issue? Because you might be thinking to yourself, I can think of a lot of reasons why a driver wouldn't install during the installation process. Yep, I can too. But this question gave you 5 possible answers. And it said, of those 5 possible answers, which of these would be the most likely reason? In fact, the exam is very good at not giving you the exact reason. that you would always find the one that's the most common. They don't give it to you. They give you maybe the second most popular reason. And then you have to figure out that piece from there. Comes in hard. Yeah, good example. You got the wrong driver. You got a 32-bit driver you're trying to install on a 64-bit version of Windows. That's a perfectly legitimate reason why this would not fail. That wasn't any of the answers. Didn't have that answer there. This exam will ask you, of these available possibilities, which one of these could it be? And so you have to figure out this from there. There's no way you could write a question that would cover every corner case that your mind can go down. So we could have put into the question that we have already confirmed that the driver is a 64-bit driver, and we're installing it into a 64-bit version of Windows. And then we can continue through this. But now we're having to do 10 different corner cases just to get down to the answer. And hopefully you were able to see very easily the only possible answer here, not just the most likely one, but the only one it could have been would be B, the user needs elevated permissions. That's an important thought to keep in mind as you're going through the A+ exam. So let's now do another multiple choice question. I'm going to get this going over to the next question that asks, here it is. A user in the shipping department uses an external website to create shipping labels. After each label is created, at least 2 browser windows appear that contain random advertisements. Which of these would best describe this problem? Would it be an invalid site certificate? Would it be a man-in-the-middle attack? Would it be incorrect proxy settings? Would it be a phishing attack? Or would it be malware infection? All of these are definitely security issues, but which one really describes this problem? Let's go through this problem one more time. A user in the shipping department uses an external website to create shipping labels. After each label is created, at least 2 browser windows appear that contain random advertisements. Which of these would best describe this problem? Invalid site certificate, man-in-the-middle attack, incorrect proxy settings, phishing attack, or malware infection? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA, and you will be able to have a look. For those of you who are still talking about drivers for that last question, if you're running a 32-bit version of Windows, you must use 32-bit versions of the driver. If you are using a 64-bit version of Windows, you must use 64-bit drivers. It's not the same for applications. If you're running a 64-bit version of Windows, you can run both 64-bit apps and 32-bit apps. But drivers are a different animal. Drivers are the middleman between the hardware that you're running and the operating system that's on your desktop. There's no room for error with a driver. So if you're running 32-bit version of Windows, it's a 32-bit driver. If you're running a 64-bit version of Windows, it's a 64-bit driver, and ne'er the twain shall meet. That's an important consideration for those of you. This was the problem we had back in the day. It was very hard to get a 64-bit version of Windows to work reliably. And that's because the manufacturers of the hardware weren't creating 64-bit drivers. It was a chicken and egg kind of problem. The hardware manufacturers didn't see a need to create 64-bit drivers because there wasn't a lot of people using a 64-bit version of Windows. And because there weren't drivers available, nobody was moving to a 64-bit version of Windows. And there was a time when we would tell people, oh, I know there's a 64-bit version of Windows available. Please don't use it. Please do not put that on your desktop. Please do not put that on your workstation. Please, oh please. We will never get that to work properly with your printer, with your mouse, with your display, or any of those other things. There would always be something. These days, though, we've all kind of made the jump. The whole industry took a while, but we finally got over to having these 64-bit versions of drivers, and these days that is the preferable operating system flavor, is that 64-bit version. So let's see how we did with this particular question, which, by the way, has nothing to do with 64-bit or 32-bit drivers. The user in the shipping department uses an external website to create shipping labels. After each label is created, at least 2 browser windows appear that contain random advertisements. Which of these would best describe this problem? 51% of you said malware infection. 23% of you said phishing attack. 15% said man in the middle. And then we have incorrect proxy settings at 8% and invalid site certificate at 3%. So if we go with that, half of you answering a question, 51% have said malware infection. That's really what's causing this particular issue. Is it really? Well, let's have a look at what this issue is. We're getting pop-ups in the browser. We're getting extra windows that are appearing whenever we're using a perfectly legitimate application, and suddenly things are popping up on our screen. This is something that should never be happening. It is something that would only happen if it came from the website that we were connected to. But since we're connecting to this website that has this business use, it makes labels, having a bunch of advertisements pop up after you print a label is not a normal thing. It's certainly something that's not expected or something you would not want. Of course, you could try updating the browser and turning off the pop-up feature. That might help you, but you're solving the symptom and not the problem. There's some reason those windows are popping up, and most likely it's because you're infected with some type of adware. Adware is a type of malware that will completely take over your browser and just pop up ads on your screen and show you ads. You weren't even expecting it, and there are the ads. It's all in front of you. Every time you go to a site, there's more ads that pop up. It's horrible. You have to deal with all of these ads that are going by. And in this particular description of the problem, of the possible answers that we have, that's the one that does make the most sense to me as well. So the 52% of you that chose malware infection, spot on with that. Now, why wasn't it some of these others? A phishing attack, the 24% of you that said phishing attack, a phishing attack is going to ask you for information. A phishing attack is fishing for details. They are trying to get you to tell them information about yourself. What's your name? What's your social security number? What's your address? What's your phone number? What's your credit card number? What's the expiration date on that credit card? What's that funny little number on the back of the credit card? They want to know those types of things. So whenever you run into those situations where you notice that someone's trying to get you to log in with the username and password into a site that doesn't look like the right site, that's a phishing attack. In this case, we're just getting messages, we're just getting advertisements popping up on our screen. It probably is not anything related to a phishing attack. Man in the middle implies that there's somebody in the middle that is changing or capturing the information that's there. Usually invisibly they are doing this. And since the connection, we can think to a website to do shipping labels is probably going to be one running over a secure channel, it's going to be nearly impossible for somebody on a man-in-the-middle attack to be able to intercept that secure connection and somehow be able to create new windows on your screen. In fact, they just don't do that. Also, the complexity of getting into the middle of a connection to simply show you advertisements is not what a man-in-the-middle attack is really for. Man-in-the-middle wants to grab information, steal the information as it's going back and forth without you knowing it, ideally. Sometimes man-in-the-middle can inject things into the stream, but that stream would need to be something that was not protected, not encrypted. And almost everything we do online these days seems to be HTTPS. I would imagine that creating shipping labels on an external website would also be that as well. 9% said incorrect proxy settings. Well, if the proxy settings were incorrect, then we probably aren't communicating out to the internet. So that's not going to be the issue we're running into either. And then 2% said an invalid site certificate. The invalid site certificate would give us a message on our screen that says we cannot talk to this particular website because the certificate there's a problem. We're either talking to the wrong server, we're talking to a certificate that has expired, or something else is a problem associated with that certificate. It certainly would not pop up ads just because the certificate was bad. In this particular question, which asks, which of these would best describe this problem? The answer that indeed best describes this problem is indeed E, malware infection. 53% of you got that one absolutely right. So plenty to look through for that one. There is a ton of information you need to know on the A+ exams. Everything from hardware to operating systems to networking to security to cloud-based systems and even more. Fortunately, all of this information is in my videos. You can watch every single video, take some notes, and you'll be able to gather all of those details for the exam. Unfortunately, there are over 100 videos. We're up to over 15, 16 hours of content. There's a lot of content there. So one of the things you might want to do is to look into maybe getting some course notes that I've already created for you. I've taken all of the text, all of the graphics, all of the details from these courses, and I've taken all of that and put it into a single PDF file. It's one place to go to be able to see everything that's in my videos. A full index, I can jump to any of these at any time. For instance, if I wanted to go to Let's do macOS tools, and we can click on it. It takes me to the macOS tools section of that, and then I can go through. You can see all of these details there. There's the Linux commands, the DD command, convert and copy a file. You can't see it because my head's in the way. You've got the kill all command, the apt-get, the VI. Yeah, all of those commands you have to know. Here's the other Linux commands on this side of the screen. All of this detail is in the course notes, along with all the graphics and everything else that I have throughout all of my courses. A lot of detail in here. You can find out more about these at professormesser.com/1000notes. We'll get you there as well. There's also a physical version of these notes available. This is one. There it is. It's a real book. So you can either get the PDF digital version or you can get this physical version of the book, which is a softback book with the regular, they call it perfect bound book that's there. And it's got all high color, nice high quality, full color pages on the inside. So it's a nice read. And if you get the physical version, I give you the digital version for free. So although I have to ship this to you, you'll be able to download the PDF immediately. This is also a great way to help contribute to the site. I don't take any donations. I don't do a Patreon. I would like to give you something for your money. I think that if you're spending the time and spending the money to do this certification, you should be getting something in return. And this is a great way to support what we're doing. So every penny from this goes back to keeping the lights on and motivates me to keep all of these courses up to date. You can find out more about these course notes at professormesser.com/1000notes. And thank you for those of you who already purchased the notes. Thank you so much. It really does go a long way to make sure that we're able to continue to create these videos and these courses and keep everything updated and available to you. So I really do appreciate it. Let's do more Q&A. I've got one for you that last one we talked a little bit about security. I think I have one. I don't know if this might be security related or not. It's a system administrator, so it's system related. A system administrator has been asked to install a DRM server on the network. Which of the following would best describe the use of this server? Would it be synchronize the date and time on all devices? Would it be to share files between macOS systems? Would it be to limit the use of certain applications? Would it be to provide a repository of free software? Or would it be to securely store encryption certificates? There's a little bit there for the system administrator to deal with. Maybe you've had to deal with a DRM server on your network. If you think you know the right answer, go to professormesser.com/QA and answer it there. Please don't answer in the chat room. No hints in the chat room, please. A system administrator has been asked to install a DRM server on the network. Which of the following would best describe the use of this server? Synchronize the date and time on all devices, share files between macOS systems, limit the use of certain applications, provide a repository of free software, or securely store encryption certificates. Those are your 5 options. Lock in your answers. No. And you'll be able to do this. Oh, the chat room's asking if I ever thought about a job at the NSA. No, sir. Nope. Not doing the NSA. Can't keep up with those guys. Those I've already done my work in the security industry as a former systems engineer of a next generation firewall company. Worked there about 7 years. So I did my time in IT security. And it was fun. It was a blast. Highly recommend that kind of job. Really enjoyed being a systems engineer and working really with this high-tech security type companies. A lot of fun. You meet great people. You work with great people. It's all around a great thing to do. So not bad. Not a bad day had there. It's always a little bit of fun we're having somehow. And you see really interesting things. Imagine you're the one taking in this security technology into these companies that have never seen it before. You're plugging into their network, and now you're seeing everything happening on their network from a security perspective that no one has ever seen before. Yeah, a lot of fun. Just never the same day twice. Never a dull moment. And oh boy, if I could tell you the things that I've seen on people's corporate networks, I can't. Unfortunately, I have no way to do that, but it's some interesting stories. You'll have to catch me offline sometime. Maybe we can do that and do something like that. That'd be a lot of fun. Let's see how we did with this question, which was this DRM server. What are we doing with this DRM server? Let's see how we did with this answer. Again, we're a little torn, aren't we? We've got 46% of us said limit the use of certain applications. I think that's close enough to the 50%. I try to get one answer at 50%. I'll take that one on this one. 32% of you said securely store encryption certificates. That's not a bad thing to do. About a third of you answered that one. 11% said synchronize the date and time on all devices. 7% said provide a repository of free software, and only 5% said share files between Mac OS systems. So why would we have a DRM server? I guess it would be useful to know what DRM is, and that's the one that we probably want to focus on the most. DRM is listed in the CompTIA exam objectives. DRM stands for Digital Rights Management. That's what DRM is. And DRM is either hardware, software, or some technology that is designed to manage or control the way that an application or piece of hardware is used. Digital rights management. This is something that we still see, of course, out in the world. There are certainly applications and companies that rely on DRM. We've gotten away from it quite a bit. Early on with audio, with the music companies were very, very insecure about allowing us to listen to music on our mobile devices. And they tried to create their own way to maybe put it on a CD, allow you to put it in your computer, but then only limit how you're able to listen to it or control your ability to copy that to somewhere else. So that's what DRM was designed for. Now, fortunately, we have these other companies that came along that said, what if we just put it in our phones and we just control it in our phones? You wouldn't have to deal with that. And unfortunately, that worked out for everybody. It seems to have anyway, that we're able to do that. So DRM, Digital Rights Management, controls how we're able to use software, how we're able to make that work properly. And there is, of course, still DRM used today, a little more subtle in some of the things that it's done today, but that's one that you do have to think about. If you're installing a third-party application that has DRM, there may be a specialized server that you have to install, that the application checks into the server, make sure that machine is able to run the application. When they're finished running it, the license is put back. There's still applications that do that. And in this particular answer C, 47% of you said limit the use of certain applications. That is absolutely what DRM is used for. And in fact, most of the time it's a limitation. DRM is never used to make sure that more people could use an app. That's not the use of DRM. When I was getting into publishing these videos, I was thinking of different ways to publish them. Should I put them on YouTube and they would just be available to everybody? Should I sell them separately, like a traditional corporate commercial video training retailer would? And I looked at this and said, well, to do that, there would need to be some type of, what I want to put copy type controls on this so people couldn't copy it. And so I looked at DRM solutions and they were just all horrible and ridiculous. DRM kind of sits between you and the thing you're trying to get to, and it creates a barrier to be able to do that by definition. That's what you got DRM to do. Well, I didn't want to create a barrier. I wanted to have my content more available. So ultimately, our business model, we decided on make it free and let's see what happens. And thanks to you, it's a model that's worked out okay. I'm glad we did it that way and we didn't go the DRM way to do that particular business model. So if you answered C, limit the use of certain applications, that would be correct. Synchronizing the date and time on all devices, that would be an NTP server, Network Time Protocol, which you still need to have on your network. Sharing files between Mac OS systems would probably be a Mac OS server, a Windows or a Mac server X of some kind, server 10 of some kind. Providing a repository of free software, maybe an FTP server would be the best way to do that. That's a common way to do it. And securely store encryption certificates. There's a lot of different ways to do that on a corporate network. There are certainly services and servers that you can install. Not DRM, though. That's not what DRM is able to do. And ultimately, DRM, every time I've seen DRM used, it's always been circumvented in some way. So that's another thing to consider. If you're somebody who's trying to decide whether you should use DRM or not, think very hard and long about, should I really get into this? Because DRM may be, indeed, as you say in the chat room, more trouble than it is worth. Well, speaking of more trouble than it's worth, we have more questions to go. I'm going to take a second question that's coming up. This one dealing with Windows 10. So let's get this question ready to go on my screen so you can see it. Here we go with, how are we on time, by the way? Let's get this question in. We got plenty of time. Here's the question that asks, Windows 10 requires a CPU that includes the NX feature. Which of these best describes this feature? Would it be protects against malicious software, ensures that operating system updates are genuine, allows 32-bit processors to use more than 4 gigabytes of RAM, multiple threads can be processed at the same time, or allows application developers to use a standard instruction set? Windows 10 requires a CPU that includes the NX feature. November X-ray, NX. Which of these best describes this feature? Does it protect against malicious software? Does it ensure that operating system updates are genuine? Does it allow 32-bit processors to use more than 4 gigabytes of RAM? Is it that multiple threads can be processed at the same time? Or does it allow application developers to use a standard instruction set? Do you think you know the answer? You can go to professormesser.com/QA and you can answer this question. There it is. So professormesser.com/QA will get you to that question. And maybe you've seen this feature before, having it there. Yes, the whole DRM thing, it's a very controversial subject. It has certainly places that it is an absolutely valid thing to have, where DRM makes perfect sense. There's other places that maybe it doesn't make so much sense. And I think it's really up to us as the consumer to let organizations know whether it's something that makes sense or not. Hopefully that's one of those that the business itself takes care of it. Then when you're dealing with different competitors in the market, then these problems tend to take care of themselves. And hopefully that they do. And I think it has. As far as music is concerned, it seems to have taken care of itself. I think we're all relatively happy, relatively fine with how things have turned out. I won't say that we're relatively happy with how things have turned out. We just know that it's relatively fine how things have turned out. Let me quickly change around some things on my screen here. I'm going to get this all set up here. There we go. So hopefully you were able to answer this question. Let's see how you did with this. Yes, I've used DRM that required you plug something into the computer to make the application work. And if somebody else needed to use the app, you had to get out of the app, hand them the USB key, and have them work with that one as well. Let's see how you did with this. Well, we're very torn on this one. In the NX feature, because 36% have said protects against malicious software, 34% of you said multiple threads can be processed at the same time. So tie for first. 19% said allows 32-bit processors to use more than 4 gigabytes of RAM. And then the last two are 7% saying that it ensures an operating system updates are genuine. 6% said that it allows application developers to use a standard instruction set. The NX feature, well, as you may remember with Windows 8, Windows 8.1, there were also these processor requirements. They are exactly the same in Windows 10. The processor requirements for Windows 10 are identical to those for Windows 8 and 8.1. So if you're somebody who's already familiar with the Windows 8.1 requirements, you got this. For instance, PAE. PAE, for example, is the physical address extension that allows a 32-bit processor to reference memory that's outside of that 4 gigabyte block, which is something that we don't typically think about. We think if it's 32-bit operating system, 4 gigabytes the max we can do. And this capability with the physical address extension does allow some capabilities to be able to access memory that's beyond 4 gigabytes. And you need that to run that. If it's a 32-bit processor, you need that for Windows 10. If it's a Windows 10 running and you have the NX processor, hey, that sounds familiar. It protects against malicious software. This is a part of the processor that restricts other applications from executing in an address space that someone else is already in, already built into the CPU to make your memory more safe. And that's the NX processor bit. That's exactly the one we want. And because this is one of the answers that's here, the The options for the SSE2, the Streaming SIMD Extensions 2, is an instruction set used by third-party application developers. So those are three different processor requirements you need for Windows 10. In our particular case, NX, as we've already seen, is one that's a security feature, and it protects against malicious software. So if you're one of the 39% of you that answered A, protects against malicious software, absolutely correct. We've already seen that the physical address extension allows 32-bit processors to use more than 4 gigabytes of RAM, and that the SSE2 allows application developers to use the standard instruction set. So there are things you can do there to make all of that happen, to make all of that work. So that is your right answer. Protects against malicious software is the right one. If you've been watching this for continuing education credit and you want to be able to receive an email from me that's digitally signed that says you must have watched 1 hour of this study group, whether you've watched this live or whether you're watching this in the replay, it both applies. You go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website and you can click on the Contact Us link. That Contact Us link will bring up a form. Make sure you put in the subject line of that form that this is the June 2019 220-1002A+ study group. It's also very useful if you put in that subject line the super secret code word of the month. The super secret code word of the month is NX. NX is the super secret, not even a word really. The super secret code letters of the month are NX. We know what it is though. It's the NX processor bit. You can put that there. It's also a message that's coming directly to me. If you want to put anything else in there, any messages to me, you can do that as well. I get a lot of these in. I can't reply to every single one of them, but I do read through every single submission that you give to me. And it takes me about a week or so, although this last time it took me about 3. It takes me about a week or so to get these back to you. But you can absolutely wait in your inbox for that to arrive, and it will be a digitally signed email that says you must have watched this because you knew what the super secret code word / code letters are of the month. That's the process. Make sure you follow that process. If you don't follow that process, you won't receive anything back from me. It's my it helps me know that you must have watched this because you heard what the instructions were. So the instructions are just as important as that super secret code word. We're coming up on the top of the hour, but let's do one more question. We can fit one more in. We'll go to a little bit of overtime, but I kind of like to do more questions. So here we go. One more question on the screen. The question is, let me bring it up on my screen. A user in the manufacturing department has brought their home laptop to work. Great. And they've connected it to the corporate network. Even better. Unfortunately, a worm on the laptop has now infected a number of other systems. I did not see that coming. Which of these security issues was the cause of this outbreak? Was it a brute force attack, a man in the middle, a denial of service, a zero-day attack, or a non-compliant system? Those are our 4 options. Oh, this person is in such trouble. A user in the manufacturing department has brought their home laptop to work and connected it to the corporate network. Unfortunately, a worm on the laptop has now infected a number of other systems. Which of these security issues was the cause of this outbreak? Is it a brute force attack, man in the middle, denial of service, zero-day attack, or non-compliant system? This is one that you do have to know what the differences are with this. So make sure you are familiar with these that are coming through. That might be able to help you get through the different pieces of this. If some of you are seeing blurriness with your video, just change your video settings. Click the cog at the bottom. You can change to a higher resolution for your YouTube. YouTube is what's sending you the video signal. It's not me sending you the video signal. It's a 2-step process. I send a video signal to YouTube, and then YouTube crunches it up and then sends you a video signal at a particular bit rate, depending on the resolution that you choose in your player. So there's plenty of there to choose from. You can do a 480p, you can do 720, you can do 1080. So there's plenty there. The 1080 will be the clearest. And I'm looking at my stats and I haven't dropped any frames to YouTube, so it's all on YouTube to make that happen. Hopefully they're getting you a signal. I love using YouTube for these live streams. It's fast. You see the stream about 10 seconds after I say something, which is incredibly fast for these live streams. So I like using them. Hopefully we can continue to do that. It's worked out extremely well for that to happen. Let's see how you answered this one. A user in the manufacturing department brought their home laptop to work and connected it to the corporate network. Unfortunately, a worm in the laptop has now infected a number of other systems. Which of these security issues was the cause of this outbreak? 79% of you said a non-compliant system. 79%. 16% of you said a zero-day attack. And then a tie for third with 2% apiece with brute force, man in the middle, and denial of service. Was someone bringing in their home computer? That would certainly be a non-compliant system. IT department did not check off on that one. And as it turns out, the IT department did not have any controls in place to prevent a non-compliant system from connecting to the network. And it's remarkable how many organizations don't. This is a remarkably common problem in many organizations. One way that you could do it is to have devices on the network that look for non-compliant systems. You could also integrate with an 802.1x. You could do periodic scans to make sure nothing's there. There's a lot of options for providing some controls that will prevent a non-corporate device from connecting to the network. And in this particular situation, it wasn't a brute force. Nobody was trying to hack into anybody's system. It wasn't a man in the middle. There wasn't a third party listening in on what was going on. It's not a denial of service. I guess ultimately it was sort of a denial of service. If the worm brought down all of these systems, it could have been. But there was no mention as what happened. When the worm infected the other systems, did it bring them down? It may not have. It may have just infected them and they continue to run, which probably would not be a denial of service. Zero-day attack. We don't know that this is a previously unknown worm. There was no mention of that either. So we can't say for sure if this was a 0-day or not. So that would not be the cause. Non-compliant system was ultimately the cause of this outbreak. They brought in a system that was not compliant with the organization's security requirements and standards, and it has infected other devices. Would Active Directory have prevented this? Active Directory doesn't have any inherent security features built into it. Someone could connect to the network even without having to log in to the Active Directory infrastructure. For example, you can plug in a Linux machine to the network and continue to use that Linux machine, and the Linux machine may not, in many cases does not, talk at all to Active Directory. And I recognize that Linux can absolutely talk to Active Directory. That's not what I said, and I look forward to your cards and letters. That is the right answer. 80%, 79% of you did a great job with that one. Well done. That was the right answer, and please don't take your laptop from home and take it into work and plug it in, because you may end up not having a job once you're finished there. We don't want that to happen. All of the questions that we went through today, all of the details we've been discussing come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. This should be the first thing that you download before you start your studies. If you haven't, go do this now. Go out to professormesser.com/objectives. I will redirect you over to the CompTIA website where you can download all of these objectives. They list everything you need to know to be able to pass this exam. If you know everything in these objectives, you're good. You're going to pass your exam. I have 100% confidence that if you know everything in these objectives, you're passing your exam. That's how close these objectives are to the actual exam questions themselves. They make a great checklist, and you should take advantage of this. Other certification people like Microsoft, Cisco, VMware, anyone else you would take a certification test from, nobody else provides this level of detail. CompTIA is the only one really providing this level of detail. It's a huge advantage for you to be able to use this. So make sure that you do. Huge advantage. That's at professormesser.com/objectives. Well, we do one of these study groups every month. We've got another hour of Q&A coming up. I've got open up the phone lines. We'll take questions from the chat room. But the questions I make for you are all done brand new every month. We don't recycle the same questions through. So you can come back and get different questions every time. I sit down and write all of these questions for the study group so that we're able to get something new every time. The next two study groups are July 9th and July 11th. That's for the 220-1001 and 220-1002 study groups respectively. You can also find the breakdown of those, although at ormesser.com. That's not right. That's not the thing. That's not where that is. That's exactly the wrong URL. That's what I get for pasting in the graphic. Now let's take the graphic. Let's send the graphic to the back. Now I'm going to be able to show you the proper URL, which is professormesser.com/calendar. See, it is live. If you are watching this after July 9th or July 11th, you can, of course, go out to professormesser.com/calendar at any time and see when the next live event is going to be. You can see the graphic. I got it messed up there. I messed up my dots there. They're not where they're supposed to be. The whole thing is kind of wonky, isn't it? I'm going to move this down. There we go. There, see the 9th and the 11th. See how we did that? See, it's all fixed, everybody. That's high quality. That's what you get from me, is that high quality graphics on the study group. I think you can figure out. We don't have a study group the first week of the month in July. That's because here in the United States, July 4th is our Independence Day. And instead of having you sit on a study group that week, when most of us are usually on vacation anyway, doesn't make much sense. So come back the week after, and you'll be able to join us with this. And of course, we'll do the Network Plus and Security Plus study groups later that month as well. There's plenty of those things to go through. Yes, the first hour is already over. Stick around for the second hour. We're going to do Q&A. I'll just open up the phone lines. You can ask questions or not. You don't have to call. You can ask questions in the chat room as well. Don't forget about Twitter at professormesser.com/Twitter or YouTube at professormesser.com/YouTube. Thank you for subscribing to that. It does go a long way. I got an email from my YouTube representative just yesterday. We're working on some other things behind the scenes. They would not be reaching out to me if it wasn't for your support. So thank you. Don't forget about the course notes. Another great way to support the site is at professormesser.com/1000notes. And of course, we do one of these every month. Absolutely free. Love to have you come back. Love to have you here. Find out when the next one is, professormesser.com/calendar. Stick around for the next hour. I already got questions coming in the chat room. We'll talk about anything you'd like, almost anything you'd like in the next hour. We'll talk to you then. Thanks for being here for this first hour, though. We will see you next time on the A+ Study Group. Well. Let's see if I can bring up the things I need to bring up to make some of these things work. I don't know that I can. I need to get the phone lines up and running. Everybody hold on just a second while I do that. Well, I still have a 900 series study group after it retires. You'll notice there are no 900 study groups now. In February, we switched over to the 1000 series. But you have 3 years worth of 900 series study groups you can go back and watch the replays of. So that was the reason we decided to switch over. Just made a whole lot of sense at that point, and I think most of us should be trying to switch over to the new one. I think that's probably the best idea for most of us for that. So nope, no more 900 series study groups ever. So sad. Just kind of didn't even tell anybody. We just didn't have them anymore. Well, I sort of told you, but not really. But that wasn't the point after all. The point was just to get the new stuff out there, and a lot of stuff's overlapped. So that's okay. We're doing similar stuff, so that makes sense.
Enter your 6-digit PIN number.
Well, I'll do that. And let me plug in my 6-digit PIN number and see.
Welcome.
Thank you. Welcome to you, too. Now we're able to take your phone calls. All you have to do in the continental United States is toll-free number. I pick up the tab, 855-785-RJ45. You can call in, and I'll pick up the phone line. We'll talk. We'll have a conversation or not. You can always put questions in the chat room as well. If you are outside the continental United States, you could still call me for free by using Skype. No Skype minutes are required. Simply put a +1 at the beginning. +1 855-785-7545. And you can absolutely call in that way as well. So sorry, no more 900 series study groups. But as I mentioned on the website, professormesser.com, all of those study group replays for the last 3 years up to February, to January. January, February, we switched over, and I started putting the number in the title, so you'll know when the 1000 series started. But there's 3 years of those, so you can go back for 3 years and look at all those, go through all those details. Have that there. We do have some people that are calling in, so I'm going to go to those phone calls, and then we'll take some more of these questions from the chat room. You're more than welcome to put questions in the chat at professormesser.com/live. In the meantime, we'll go to the 614 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, good afternoon, Professor. My name is Stanley, calling from Columbus, Ohio.
Welcome, Stanley. Good to have you here. What can we do for you?
I just want to again appreciate you for all this content that you create. They are very, very helpful. With the help of these videos and all the content, I've got my A plus, and I just got my Net plus
Nice.
this month, and I'm so excited. I just called to say thank you, and only God will bless you for all this content.
Oh, Stanley,
Thank you so much.
congratulations. You did the hard part, so congratulations to you on that. Having the A plus is a big deal. Getting the Network Plus is also a big deal. If you had to decide which one of those was harder, the A plus is 2 exams, the Network Plus is 1 exam, but which one did you have the biggest challenges with?
I guess the A plus second part, the 902 then, now it's now 1002, but now the 902 then was the most challenging part. I came very close. I was just 3 points over. 3 points over.
3 points is a pass.
Yeah.
We'll take it.
Yeah. Yeah, 3 points above the passing score. But the first part, I was like 60 points over the passing score, and the Network Plus, I was like 70 points.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Nice
Yeah.
job. I love it. That's the way to do it. And now what's the next step then? Now that you have A plus, Network Plus, is there a particular job you're working towards? Is there a particular set of certifications you're looking for? What's on the next thing? What's your next step?
Originally, my set target is to get those three certifications in 1 year time. That's my goal. I've got 2, and I'm on the Security Plus study right now. I've gone very close. I'm just doing my final reviews now. And I work at a data center right now. One of that support tech.
Nice.
And that's where I am right now. I'm hoping to get my Security Plus anytime this month.
I think that's a good plan. Nice, good triplicate to have there. And from there, you can kind of hop off and go any direction you like. Thanks for calling, Stanley. I appreciate it. And congratulations again.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. That's always like to hear those stories. Those are always good ones to know about, that we've had some folks have some success at getting their certifications and had some success in what they're doing next. That's after all what we're trying to figure out is, what do we do next? We need something to get on our resume so we can either get that job or get that better job. And as I've mentioned in some of the other study groups, you don't have to know what you're doing 5 years from now. You just need to have an understanding of what you want to do next. And this is a great way to do that. There's no one thing, by the way, that works for that. I get a lot of emails where people say, all right, I'll get my certification. And how many jobs can I get with that? Well, there's no one thing that gets you a job. Experience alone won't get you a job. Certification alone won't get you a job. A formal education alone won't get you a job. You have to combine a lot of things together to be able to make that happen. But it sure is nice. I find nice to get the certification, not only to show people you're certified, but I don't know about you. I actually learned something when I go through the certification process. I learn more about the operating system, the security, the networking, whatever it happens to be, much more than I ever did previously. So that helps me a lot too. Back to the phones. 443 is the area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Hi, caller.
Hi, my name is Shakari Delma. I am calling from Maryland.
Welcome. What can we do for you?
I just want to say I have been doing this. I just started this journey, this certification journey, and it was a lot of pros and cons. My dad had a Security Plus. He has his hacking license, his hacking certification, and he has his CCNA. But when it was my turn to get my certifications, my mom recommended me to get my A plus and Network Plus.
Okay.
And honestly, your videos helped me a lot, because I don't want to sound negative or anything like that. It's just that the class that I'm taking, it's not really hands-on. He just tells us what's going to be on the test. And it's kind of difficult when you're not hands-on as much as you would like to, because when I take my A plus, I want to take it and pass it on the first try.
Right.
So your videos helped me a lot because I started in May and we're doing it's 901 and 902, but he told our class that soon it's going to be the 1001 and the 1002.
Right. So are you still going to try to get the 900 series done before July 31st, or are you going to make a jump over to the 1000 series?
The 1000 series, I think it'll be better because my class it's A plus A Network Plus combined.
Wow.
And I was going to take my A plus as soon as that portion was done, but my instructor said I should take it after Network Plus because they go hand in hand.
Well, if they go hand in hand, I guess it doesn't matter which one you take first. Or I could not imagine trying to cram 3 types of tests into my brain before going in to take one of them. One advantage you have, and I'll probably disagree with your instructor on that particular point, is that there's not a lot of overlap between these exams. They do build on each other. There's some fundamentals that build on each other between the A plus and the Network Plus, but the content and the exam objectives between all 3 of them is really quite different. And if I had to give any recommendation to anybody, and I often do give this recommendation, which is study for one exam, study for their 1001 or the 1002, it doesn't matter which order you take them in, and then take that exam. Then study for the next one, and then take that exam, and then study for the next one, take that exam. There are some people I know that will cram together at least the 1001, 1002, the 2A plus exams. Some people will take both of them in one day, but generally those people are folks that already have some experience in the industry. They already are comfortable with the content. A lot of it was review, and they already know a lot that they're going to be tested on. For most, all of us, even including myself, I don't take both of the exams at the same time when I was taking A plus. I, at the minimum, separate them out by a day. For most of us, you take one, you study for it, you study for 3 more months, you take the other one, you study for 3 more months, you take the third, for instance, with Network Plus. But the style is not as important as the result. So if you think you can go in and take multiple tests on a single day and be successful, you're the one who really can make that decision, and you have the best idea of what you're capable of doing.
Another thing, and please tell me if this is right or wrong. Now, I was told that the more certifications you have, the more money you'll make. Because I was going to do Security Plus and CCNA after my A plus. I was going to get A plus, Network Plus, Security Plus, and CCNA. Now, my dad thinks, he was like, well, you can't get any real money with A plus and Network Plus. He says I should just, yeah.
This is something I've seen in the industry before, and if you look in the industry or you Google anything for IT salary surveys, these are some of the best things to look at. And people will look through these salary surveys, and they'll see that someone who has these 5 certification makes a lot more than the person who has 2 certifications. And they'll look at the different certifications and what they are, and they'll try to put together the certification with the salary. I would say, and in fact, every case that I've seen associated with this in my own personal experience of having jobs in the industry and having certifications along with them, is the correlation there is not as tight as many people think that it is. It is not that having multiple certification means that you're going to make more money. It means that the people that have worked up to a point where they're making more money have along the way gathered a number of certifications on their path to getting to that point. So it's actually getting the steps that they have taken through the years have finally gotten to a point where they look back and they've accumulated all these certs, and now they've also had their income go up because they've been moving up the ladder into different roles in their organization. It doesn't work the way it doesn't work is you go out and get your A plus, your Network Plus, your Security Plus, your CCNA routing and switching, and maybe a second set of Cisco certifications, and then you walk in the door and say, I can bypass all of those entry-level jobs because I now have 5 certifications. You should start me up at a high 6 figures. Thank you very much. Where do I sit? That doesn't work that way. It almost always works with you starting with an A+ Network Plus, getting that help desk position. I started in the help desk, so I absolutely understand that. Start in the help desk, learn a little more, get some knowledge of operating systems, move into the operating system arena, the system administrators, get some networking experience, move into the network administrator positions, get some security experience, move into the security positions, or whatever path makes sense for you. It's very unusual for someone to jump into a position that is higher than their experience allows just because they happen to have some certifications in their pocket. A good example and something I recommend everybody to do would be to go out to your favorite sites for job postings. Go out to the Indeeds and the Dices of the world and look at the job postings at different levels for help desk, for system administrator, for network administrator, for security administrator, and look at not only what certifications they're asking for, look at how many years of experience they're looking for. And I think you'll start to be able to piece together that this is more of a pathway. You're going down a river rather than running all the way to the end and jumping into the water.
One more question,
Sure.
Please. I had 2 options. It was either get the A+ Network Plus, the class I'm taking now, or my mom she works in a government building, and she told me if I can just get the help desk certification, that's what it's called. I could work at her office.
This is something. Go ahead.
I asked my dad about that certification, and he didn't know what that was.
I'm not specifically familiar with
a
a help desk certification and what that is either, but it doesn't matter because that's what they're looking for. I'm sure in their job postings they have the name of the help desk certification and what they would expect. And that brings me to my second point, which is you don't even need a certification to get a job in IT. This isn't like getting a nursing certification. To be a nurse, you have to be board certified by the state that you live in. Well, it's not the same in IT. There's some people hiring that don't even want you to be certified because they know they can hire you at a lower rate and they can just train you as you go. Some employers want you to already be knowledgeable and they're willing to pay for that knowledge when you walk in the door. But being certified is something that first helps you and what you know. It helps explain to an employer what the core foundation is of the things that you are familiar with as well. But it's not a guarantee of a job, and it's in some cases it's completely unnecessary. This is one of those things that is kind of weird in our industry is there's not one way to do it. There's multiple ways and multiple paths you can go. I think having the certification is much better than not because whether your employer is interested in it or not, the certification has taught you about these technologies and you can bring that to your job and show that you're able to move up faster than other people who may be already in that organization. I think that, and also the important thing that, and you just mentioned this, here's a job and they'll take you in this job. All you have to know is this minimum set of knowledge to get into that position. I don't see any need to go any further than that. If that's the position you would like to start in, that you should always focus your efforts on having the qualifications the employer wants and not necessarily the qualifications that you want. It's more important to make your employer happy than yourself. You've got plenty of time in your future to get A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, Cisco, Microsoft, Linux, or whatever your interest is. The important part for the vast majority of us, just get in the door. Because as soon as you have that IT position, you can leverage that for your next job. And then you leverage that for your next job. It may be much more important to get in the door with no certs than it would ever be to wait around, collect certifications, and then hope you can get another job. You have options. You have a lot of good options here. And if anything, you're in a very good position. It's now just figuring out what you want to do and being able to leverage what you've learned to be able to get those jobs.
Okay.
Hopefully that's helped. I don't know if that's helped. It sounds like
Yeah.
maybe it hasn't.
It has. It's just a lot of you get a lot of information and from people that's in the field, some people that are not. Some people are saying, hey, you should do this. And I have watched like some videos and people would say that, hey, certifications are not, you don't necessarily need certifications to get in, but they said those would help.
I think in almost every situation, the vast majority of times, I think that's true. I think it's very rare to find an organization that doesn't appreciate some value in a certification. And I think it's rare to find find an organization that would say, we don't want you to be certified. In fact, it's kind of hard to find those. They do exist, but it's much more unusual to find that situation. The good part is there's no right way to do this. There's no wrong way to do this. The way to do it is the one that you're most comfortable with and the one that you think you'll be able to leverage when you go to the next job, because you are going somewhere else after this first job. Now it's just a matter of getting the jumping off point to get there. Good. Best of luck. You're in a very good position. I think now, if you want even more feedback, find some people who are already in that help desk role. See if you can talk with them, take one of them to lunch. And maybe it's an opportunity also to talk to other people in your area. Go to a Microsoft user group meeting, go to some other technical user group meeting in your area, and talk to some of the people there about what they do, where they work, and what they think the advice might be. I think the more people you talk to and the more advice you get, the better you'll be able to make that first decision.
Okay.
Well, best of luck. I think it's all uphill from here. It's now just deciding which hill you want to go up.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
I thank you for calling. Best of luck. It's a good position to be in. If you're trying to figure out, should I take that job, or that job? Here's something that's even almost guaranteed. If I go that direction, there's a position available. They know my family. They're comfortable with me coming in. They're willing to take that certification. That's a pretty good gig. For me, having started on the help desk myself, I highly recommend it. It's a great place to learn. It's a great place to check things out. It's a great place to understand what you want to do next, even if you aren't sure. You can't beat that. Let's go to 571. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from? Oh, if I hit the button, there we go. You'll hear the tone. Hi, 571. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yes, I'm calling from D.C. area.
Hello, D.C. area. Well, thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Yes. I just wanted to make a comment to those hearing the video here. As far as what I've been through and what I've seen, and I hope it's okay for me to give a suggestion.
Absolutely.
I'm still currently studying my certifications, and I've been studying for over 6 months. I've gotten so many advices that I feel like I'm so overwhelmed with a lot of advices. And then there was one advice where someone hit me with it and said, I'd be making too many excuses. I should just take one path and just go with it. Because I feel like a lot of people, or what they're doing is they're asking, it's not an issue to ask questions, but a lot of people ask so many questions, they want to be comfortable with it. They just say find comfort in an answer. So what I think a lot of people should do is just choose a path and just go with it, because a lot of people take so many advices from here and there, as I heard right now in the video from the lady. And it seems like what I've seen is a lot of people, and even myself, I'm not excused from this issue, is that a lot of people take or make excuses and they just don't want to take a path. And, they just keep getting advice and they want to be at a comfortable position where they just want to run away and just feel like making excuses and say, oh, I'm taking this advice, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. A person should just take one path and just go stick with it.
It's almost one of the, I don't want to call it a disadvantage of IT, because information technology in general is empowering. It gives you many, many choices, but all of these choices, especially at the beginning, can be paralyzing in a way, because now there's a lot of different ways you can go. You're getting a lot of different types of advice. One of the things I found in my career going from the very beginning, looking back, is that I could not have predicted where exactly I was going. Even when I had an idea of maybe what I wanted to do next, there are always things that pop up and opportunities arise that end up moving you into another direction that you had no idea you were going there. For example, when I started in technology, the internet was not a thing. It did not exist at the level, certainly not the level it is today, and certainly not even, you couldn't connect to the internet until I got well into my networking career. So this is one where the opportunities that you will have available in your career are with technologies that we haven't created yet. So of course you're not going to know how to get there. What you have to do, though, you have to jump in the water, and you have to at least let the river take you a little bit. You don't know what's around the bend. That's okay. Just jump in the water. It will take you there. Just trust that the water is going to be okay, because it is. The advantage is that in IT, I think there's all these branches, and you can just take a branch at any time.
Correct. I appreciate it. I just wanted to go ahead and get that across and get some insight on that, because that's what I've been told, and I do appreciate it. I think that was some great advice. Thank you so much for giving me the time.
I appreciate you taking the time. Getting advice from somebody other than me, I think, is sometimes more important, because you hear me say this over and over. It's somebody else coming in and saying, yep, I do the same thing. Here's the situation, is incredibly valuable to others as well. So thanks for calling.
Appreciate it.
That's, the prophet has no honor in his own home. So me telling you helps, but having other people call in and say, nope, that's how I did it too. I just didn't know where to go. Just jump in. You will figure it out. And you will figure it out, because that's one of the benefits of this industry. It's not like a manufacturing job where you're on the manufacturing line and you do the same thing every day, all the time, and it never changes and there's nowhere you can go. With IT, there is ultimate upward mobility. There's literally no ceiling. So where do you go? Well, okay, once you need to get into the water, but once you're in, you can go anywhere. That's one of the great things about it. Now we got a Florida connection. Let's go to 813. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yeah, my name's Ray, and I'm calling from basically the Tampa Bay area of Florida.
Welcome, Ray. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Actually, I just had a comment about the help desk certification. I don't believe that there is a certification for help desk, but I did want to comment that I know that there's another YouTube channel that offers free training on help desk. From what they were saying, is that the reason they made the site was basically because a lot of people were saying when they got out they couldn't find a job because they didn't have any help desk training. They didn't know how to use the ticketing system. They didn't know Active Directory, and they have Active Directory. They have help ticketing system help, which is job skill share.
Sure.
On YouTube, and they also have a website. But anyway, the thing was getting some experience with it, I think, is what it entails. So I just want to let somebody know that resource was out there if that's what they were thinking that they wanted. That's it.
That's perfect, Ray. Thanks for the advice, and I think other people should look into that as well.
All right. Well, thank you for your time.
Appreciate you calling. And I think when you look at what other employers are looking for, they are wanting different certifications with different capabilities. In fact, some people may say, the help desk certification you want is really, they're talking about IDLE, or they're talking about help desk administration, or they're talking about whatever it happens to be. It just depends on what the needs are for that particular employer and what they like. Some people love for their help desk people to have IDLE certification. I don't get it. I don't know why you would do that to people. First, why do you make people hate you so? Secondly, I don't think it applies to someone who's on the help desk. I don't think that's a particular certification that helps, but some places just love for their help desk people to be ITIL, the IT Infrastructure Library certifications. I get it. I know why they think it's important. I think they are not quite spot on with what their help desk should be doing. So that's one of those you do have to think about. Like, are they really doing the right set of certs for the help desk? You wonder sometimes. But if that's what they want for you to get a job, get the IDLE certification. See how that works? It doesn't matter what you think sometimes. If that will get you in the seat, and that gets you the paycheck, I'll go get that IDLE certification in a second. Why not? And it's not hard, which is even better. 951, thanks for calling. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm calling from Moreno Valley, California.
California, checking in. Thank you for being here. What can we do for you?
Well, let me just first and foremost say that I enjoy the program. I enjoy the study groups.
Thank you.
But I have a question about the IT fundamentals exam.
Oh, here we
What
go.
is your honest opinion about? Yeah, what is your honest opinion about them? You might have answered it before, but I'm a little bit late to the show.
I don't know that I have answered it before, to be honest. CompTIA's, you're referring to, I guess we should qualify which fundamental certification you are talking about. You're referring to the one from CompTIA.
Yes, just the general IT fundamentals. It's not quite like the A+, but it's I guess it's supposed to be a little bit broader.
It is. It's kind of the beginning part of the A+. In fact, the certification on the CompTIA website is the ITF Plus, they're calling it now, the IT Fundamentals certification. And it is, as the name implies, a fundamental cert. You can think of it as the precursor to the A+. And I would guess there are some jobs out there that this would be an appropriate first certification to have. If you just need people that can put an IP address into a workstation, they can get Microsoft Word or Microsoft 365 up and running, and they can make sure the system is secure, and that's it. That's the IT Fundamentals certification. Microsoft, and there's a reason I mentioned which one you're referring to, Microsoft also has a series of fundamental certifications called the MTA, the Microsoft Technology Associate certifications. And the MTA certifications are sort of the basic fundamental starting certifications for IT professionals. Those fundamental certifications are not just for workstations, but they also have fundamental certifications for Microsoft 365, for Azure, for other cloud computing. They have other types of certifications there as well, not just for their operating systems. As far as the CompTIA certification is concerned, I think the vast majority of people jump straight to the A+, because I think the vast majority of employers are looking for the A+ certification as that fundamental cert. I don't think that what they're calling now the ITF Plus has really gotten a lot of traction in the industry. I mentioned this the other day. You've just sort of broken the spell, because someone was mentioning this the other day, and I say, well, I get an inquiry about this certification about once every 6 months. And for me, that's a pretty unusual number, because people are saying all the time, have you considered doing a course on this? Have you considered doing a course on that? I'd love to get that kind of feedback, because it gives me a barometer of what people are looking for and what they're trying to do. I rarely get somebody saying, are you going to create an ITF Plus or the CompTIA Fundamental Technology certification? So that gives you some perspective there. If you went, and the part of the problem also is that CompTIA has now rebranded this to the ITF Plus. I didn't even know what, if you had asked me, hey, what's the ITF Plus? I would not have known, because I'm not familiar enough with how they've renamed everything. So I think CompTIA still has to work on getting these certifications better known in the industry. I just think a lot of employers just aren't interested. They'd rather have somebody who is A+ certified. So that's kind of it. I think what they really build ITF for, and they mention this on their website, is they would like to get people certified while they're in grade school, while they're in middle school, while they're in high school. The A+ is very broad. It requires a lot of hardware and labs and goes beyond the resources that most middle schools and high schools have available. But this fundamental cert, you could do with just Windows. And pretty much every school has a machine running Windows. So this is something that's a little more capable for somebody at that level. And I think the idea was to get them started on that cert when they're in high school. And then once they get to college and further in their career, look at the higher level certifications. I think that's if I had to guess, I think that's how CompTIA was trying to position that particular cert.
Okay. Well, I'll do some more research, because I was going to ask if it's something you have to do continuing education on, or what, or just once you get it, you got it.
Gosh, that's a really good question. I do not even know with this. I've never seen ITF mentioned as a continuing education cert, but that does not mean it is not. Well, let's look real quick. Let's see if if they have it listed in the configuration. I'm on their website having a look at it. I don't see any mention of it. I don't recall seeing anything about it in their continuing education section of the website. But you're right. Some more review and research is certainly in order there.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you very much for all the info and insight.
I appreciate you calling. Thanks so much for that. Would not be able to do it without you. And I really do rarely get people talking about those fundamental certs. It's sort of a chicken and egg problem. We already talked about the chicken and egg today, and it's another one of those chicken and egg problems where you have employers that are looking for certain certifications, so people will go out and get those certifications so that they can be employed. Well, if nobody shows up with a certain cert, why would an employer want somebody with that cert? Or if they feel that there's nobody out there who has that cert, why would they ask for it? Because the employer would like somebody in that position just as bad as you would like to be in that position. Nobody puts a job posting on a website hoping that nobody responds to it. They would love to get somebody hired as quickly as possible into those jobs. So this is one where it takes a little bit of time. We've seen this a little bit with the CompTIA security certifications, the CASP certification, the higher level ones that CompTIA is working on, where it's taken a number of years just for employers to be knowledgeable enough to ask for those. But even then, you haven't seen a huge embracing of those certs quite yet, at least not to the degree that the rest of the security industry is. Security industry is pretty broad. It's pretty fragmented into different specifications. So it's hard to, there's no A+ for security. Security Plus really is the best thing you can find, but it is only the starting point. Once you get outside the scope of Security Plus, you really don't have anything else that's that comprehensive because you're shooting off in other directions with firewalls, with being able to set up routing and switching, with being able to configure encryption technologies, with being able to secure servers, so it's so many different directions that you're going at that point. It becomes difficult to have something so centralized. I think CompTIA is trying to do it, and to some degree they've been successful. There's more people asking about those certifications these days than the IT fundamental certifications. So that should give you some perspective anyway. And if you've ever tried to figure out what cert is the most popular, I, of course, recommend you go to employers in your area and see what they're asking for. That's the most popular. You're trying to figure out what cert should I get next? I get emails all the time. All they say is, what cert should I get next? I don't know. What would you like to do? Where are you trying to go? Are you looking for a job? Are you looking for a better job? Because almost always the first step is figuring out what you want to do next and then figuring out what the requirements for that are. Now you've built the path. Now it's up to you to walk across the path. Being able to say, what path should I take? I don't know. Would you like to raise cows? Would you like to would you like to maybe work in a restaurant? I don't know. Would you like to own an ice cream stand? I don't know. Figure out what you want to do. And then you'll know exactly. It will be spelled out for you what certification might be the way to go. That's really the best way to do it in my mind. But there are times when you really are looking to gather a broad amount of knowledge in a particular area. You know you want to go into networking, but you're not sure exactly what kind of networking yet. Okay, in that particular case, that knowledge helps me give some advice and say Network Plus makes more sense. Or somebody says there's a group, they handle network administration on Cisco devices. I really want to work in that group. Well, then you need Cisco certification. But we need that first bit of information. Nobody can tell you what the next step is for you until you have a look out there and do the research. And the research is some of the most important things. I mentioned earlier, in fact, along the lines of going out and looking at all of those sites where you have the job postings, is go find the people in your area that are doing these jobs. And that's sometimes a little bit more difficult, but a lot of these people are already in the user groups. So find the Microsoft user group in your area. Find the Cisco user group in your area. Go to that user group. Go multiple times. but not just to hear what people are saying. You want to meet the people that are there. You want to understand what some of the jobs are in your area. Find out where they work. Say, oh, it's my first time here. Where do you work? What do you do with Cisco? What do you do with Microsoft? We work at this place, work at that place, work at another place. I have some interest in getting into this line of work. I've been working on these particular things. What are the minimum requirements to get a job in your company to be able to do this kind of work? And they will tell you. And then you get to meet them. And then you get to say, can I be part of your LinkedIn? Let's get on the same LinkedIn so we can keep track of things that are going on. Maybe an opening will come up on your help desk and you can let me know. Also, and this is another tip that a lot of people don't realize, the people that are already working at these companies will get paid money if they bring someone in and they get a job. So there are many companies have this because the way it works in our industry, generally speaking, is that a corporation needs to fill a position in IT. They will go to a corporate recruiter and tell that corporate recruiter, we need to fill this position. The corporate recruiter has their own resources. They find somebody, they bring them in, and then the corporate recruiter is paid a percentage of what that person's salary was for the first year, and that's how the corporate recruiter gets paid. That's a good chunk of change. That's some scratch there. That corporate recruiter is doing very well if they can place somebody. The employer hates paying that much money, but they know that in some cases they have to fill these very specific technical roles. They just don't have the database of people to pull from. These corporate recruiters do. But what they do know is they have people already working for them who do know other technical people. So they'll say, if you can bring somebody in, give us their resume, we'll put your name on it. If this person is hired and they stay here 6 months, we'll give you $1,000. We'll give you $2,500. We'll give you some money. We'll give you whatever it is. And that way, people are encouraged to meet other people and bring them in and give their resume to HR, because then HR doesn't have to pay the corporate recruiter. So it's just a numbers game. But this also means that if you're working somewhere, you're always looking for good people. If you're smart, you're always looking for good people. You're always adding people to your LinkedIn. You're always tagging them with the type of job they're looking for. And you're always posting. You notice people post on LinkedIn when they have open positions at their company. That's because they want to get your resume so they can hand it in. It's almost a second job. You're almost making extra money that way. You can take advantage of this. It's not really advantage. It's just you're actually doing them a favor by making your resume available to this company and having them not have to go out to corporate recruiters to do that. This is something that works a lot better as you move up higher and higher, as your specialization gets narrower and narrower, because it's harder to find people. Help desk is not really the place where that often happens, but it still does. People still get paid internally for that. So don't miss that opportunity either. There's places you can do this and get in organizations that you just had no idea the opportunity was there. And you just have to meet people. I have found in IT, the people that I have met by far and wide have been some of the nicest, kindest, most giving, and most willing to share people you will find. This is a very complex and difficult world we live in. The technologies are hard to understand. You're doing these certifications. You know it's hard to learn this content. And once you learn it, we all kind of have to stick together. And we have to figure out with each other, how are you doing it? How are you doing it? Hey, we just put it in over here. How are you doing it? And so I used to be a systems engineer for a manufacturer. So I had a lot of customers that were hospitals. I had a lot of customers that were manufacturing. I had a lot of customers that were transportation. And so, for instance, if I had different hospitals, I would connect them with each other and say, you should talk to them about what they're doing. They should talk to you about what you're doing. Even if it had nothing to do with my technology, they were talking about things they were doing. Because it's a hospital, it's in another state, they would never talk to each other. Those types of connections become valuable, because then you can talk one-on-one with each other and figure out what'd you do, how did that work, what were the advantages, what were the disadvantages, what were you seeing. This is a very small industry. As much as we have all of these people working here, you will see the same people over and over and over throughout your career. You'll see them at trade shows. You'll see them as they come in with different manufacturers. I worked for Network General, Network Associates, Network General again. I worked for NetScout. I worked for Palo Alto Network. So I was going in to see the same customers. I just had a different business card every time. It was still the same people I was visiting, and I was the same person they were accustomed to seeing. It's the same thing no matter where you're going to be in your geography, in your area. You should get to know these people. It can only help you, and you will be able to help them as well. This is not a one-way street. We all get to help each other in what we're doing. And ultimately, it makes our life better. It makes their life better. And hopefully it makes the employer's network and systems run better too, ultimately. I think those are the things we need to think about. Hopefully that will give you something to think about too. I want to thank you for joining us. We've gotten through the second hour of Q&A. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being in the chat room. Thank you for your phone calls. Thank you for that first hour of Q&A too. Wouldn't be able to do it without you. There is so much more that we are doing throughout the rest of the month. A little bit of a change, by the way, for the rest of the month. Normally next week, we will be doing another study group. We're skipping a week. And instead, the week of the 23rd, let's just tell you, on Tuesday, the 25th, we have a Network Plus study group. On Thursday, the 27th, we do a Security Plus study group. So we're kind of doing them back to back, kind of like we did this week. I'm cramming a lot of things into June. I didn't want to miss an opportunity to do a study group with you. So it's a minor change. It's on the calendar. You can always check the calendar at professormesser.com/calendar and see what's there. So no study group next week. We're going to have double it up the week after that. We'll make sure you get everything in there so that you're able to get your Network Plus and Security Plus study group. We'd love for you to come back and join us for that one too. Thanks for being here this time. We'll see you next time on the A Plus study group.